Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the darkest timeline. So it's just me talking, I don't know, utter nonsense. Is that what it is these days? This week we're talking about whether it's time to give things up, or when is it time to give things up. Delayed mourning. Computer games, there's a fair amount of computer games, not just talking about games like normal, but there's something from the week about computer games and human endurance. Yes, stay tuned for that and more. Before we get started, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. And the key one there, the big one there, is do share the podcast around. Word of mouth is fantastic for podcasting, so please do share the podcast around. Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast, the darkest timeline. Hello. How you doing? You alright? Are you well? Are you avoiding the germs? Seems increasingly more and more difficult these days. There's a lot of, feels like a lot of germ dodging going on. Yeah, that virus is back, isn't it? Not that we talk about things like that, because, you know, not supposed to. Straight up front, straight out of the gate. It's going to be a weird one this week. I've kind of known that almost for a week. I'm going to go back and cover something from last week's podcast and explain the ramifications. Doesn't feel like the right word. Ramifications feels a little more drastic than maybe it's meant to be. There's no movies, no TV. I'm going to talk some computer game stuff, bits and bobs, computer games wise. Again, part of all of this is me explaining why there's no movies this week. I have watched films. I've watched old films. Again, that'll all come clear. So, basically, it's one of those. Nothing on the list. So, strap in for a 4-hour podcast. Also, I'll be jumping forwards and backwards. I've got something on the list that I need to talk about. Problem is, I'm not 100% sure how much. Yeah. I think it's important. That's why I've written it down. I might have to just self-edit. We'll see when we get there. Right. Let's get the main body out in front. That might be the right terminology. That might be the wrong terminology for this. Let's get the main body out in front. Going back to last week's podcast, if you listened to last week's podcast, if you didn't, probably going to be worth jumping back. And the thing from last week's podcast that may or may not be the standout thing is the film from last week, The Whale. I don't know if it came across when I was talking about it last week. I don't know if I described it well enough or whatever. Watching that film has affected me deeply. And as I said at the time, you know, it's probably not difficult to see why. And there was like a series of things. There's a story of a man who had had a traumatic experience which had led to excessive weight gain. And then there was the stuff with his child, and that was like those were the three key areas of the film. And I could sympathise with all of those things. The thing that's sort of gone unnoticed, potentially, because I was like, oh, that man's overweight, I'm overweight, that's probably, the thing to focus on. But I think there's more to it. Talk about climbing a little bit. I've been going. So last Wednesday, and I think it went back to the Saturday, and I think I spoke about this on last week's podcast. There were some issues. Watching the film had affected me, and ultimately I'd taken a knock in confidence. And a lot of the times when there are things like this involved, a lot of things in life involve confidence, and if your confidence takes a knock, those things are the first thing to go, and it can be this sort of downward spiral of I don't feel good here, or I don't feel good there, and that has a knock-on effect to other things. So because of the stuff I was dealing with mentally, emotionally, whatever, it was having an effect on my confidence when it was coming to climbing, and I was finding myself less and less able to do stuff. So come Wednesday morning, I get there, I'm trying to do things, and I can't do anything. And it's that thing, I can do the things I know I can do, but I can't do anything else, and I can't push myself, and I can't drive myself on. And I started having the conversations. I had a conversation with Leanne, I had a conversation with myself, I had a conversation with Ed, and it was all around, maybe this just isn't for me. Maybe this activity is just not for me. I got in my head, I was like, maybe I just have to let it go and let these guys get on with it and do it themselves. And that was that, and that was a conversation. I had that conversation with Leanne, and she was like, "That's not the answer. That is not the answer. Just go and do it." Kind of thing. Not as harsh as that. There was a lot of it's paid for sort of thing. Waste of money, etc. I had a conversation with myself, and I probably wasn't the right person to speak to about it. So there's that. And I had a conversation with Ed, and before I could, he was like, "How are you feeling about it?" And I was like, before I could say it, he was like, "Are you thinking it's maybe not for you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think, that's a possibility." And those are that's like the three cross sections. You've got the person that's like, "Don't be silly, just get on and do it." The person that's like, "What exactly are we doing here?" And the person that's like, "Maybe it's not for you. Maybe you've reached your max, and your max isn't enough. So maybe it's time to say this isn't for me." And I was in agreement. I was in agreement with that. Over the course of the week, a variety of different things. Like I say, one of the people I was talking to was myself. I reached a point, getting right up to Friday, where I was like, I don't think that's the answer. I don't think that's the right thing. I don't think that's the way this should end. That's the way I should go out on this one. I couldn't do it before, and I pushed on and I drove on, and there's this pocket where you need to get in your mind where you have to say, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to try it. I don't know what's going to happen past this point, but I have to. It's so strange because you have to kind of believe in an ability that you don't know you've got, and you've got to put these little tiny pieces together. Like, if I fall, can I catch myself? Yes, I have done this previously. It's going to hurt, but I have done it. If I get stuck, can I come down? Yes, it might not be the most graceful way of coming down. There may be a slip and a trip and a fall, but I can get down. Can I, at this point in time, lift this massive body weight with one arm, both arms, two arms and a leg, sort of thing? Yes, again, it might not be graceful, but it is possible. So I get to Saturday and I'm in a better place, and I go and I'm like, right, okay. And it was a different world. It was a different time. It was a different experience. I went on the new stuff straight away. I'm trying the new stuff. It took me 2 or 3 attempts to get one of them started, and then I just, I did the rest. It had a horrible hold in the middle of it that I've always struggled with previously, but I just dealt with it and moved on. I tried one of the other new ones. Couldn't do it, but I felt the fact I'd tried it was something. I went to the new ones from the week before, one of which I'd not been able to achieve. I tried it. I got stuck, but I was like, I think I can do this. I just need to work it out. So I tried a couple of different things, and one of those things actually worked, which pushed me on a bit further. And then I was like, oh, I'm kind of further, but I'm stuck. So I had to do something else, and then I managed to finish it. And I was like, hey, I've achieved 2 things today that I wouldn't have achieved if I'd have given this up. And then I saw something. Sometimes you have to work on the principle that something I used to be told was the universe will send you a message. I didn't 100% believe that. I think if you're looking for something, it's easy to see something, if you see what I mean. Like, I'm looking for a message, and then 2 magpies fly past, and you're like, there's the message that I was looking for. That kind of thing. I think there is an element of, if you're looking for it, you're going to see it in whatever. I also think there are times when things are a little unexplainable. Coincidence? Possibly. So I'm like, maybe I can't do it like this. Maybe I can do it like that. I turn round. I come down off this wall. And this was in the point where I was struggling to get this one finished. I'm like, maybe I need to do it this way, or maybe I could do it that way, or could I do it like this? And I was still locked in the zone of, I think I can do it from an ability perspective. I just need to work it out. And I turned around and I saw a guy who had a crutch. And I was like, oh, is that somebody that's had like a climbing related injury, but they're here anyway? Or is that somebody who has had a non-climbing related injury and they're here anyway? Or is that, I don't know the situation. But in a situation like that, you probably have a look. Is this person got a cast? Is this person got a knee brace? Is this person just, got one of the boots on or whatever? No, this gentleman had one leg. And at this point in time, he didn't have a prosthesis. He didn't have a prosthetic leg. He just had one leg and one crutch. And I was like, whoa. Is that guy here to climb? Not not in the sense of, well, I'm not sure you're in the right place, sir. More in the sense of, are you that much of an absolute badass that you're here doing this? And if that wasn't enough, that man then went and fully did the one I was struggling with one leg. And I'm like, come on, that's badass, that is. And he did it, and he dropped down, and he did that sort of line on his back in achievement. And I was like, if you ever needed a sign that you can do something, being as close to able-bodied person, watching somebody with one leg do something that you're like, I don't know if I can do that. It's very much a have a word with yourself kind of situation. So I waited for the guy to clear the area, and then I was like, right, that is a clear sign that if this gentleman can do that, then I should be able to do it. And I got up there and I struggled, and I had some issues getting up, but I got up, and I had some issues coming down, but I came down, and I was like, there we go. And I was going up to people who were there that I was with, and I was like, if you ever wonder if you can do something, there is a guy over there who's got one leg and he's climbing. It's never going to be a thing of you can't do it. So, there's one thing about climbing where you get into a bit of a zone. And the zone usually goes like this. Right, I'm just going to go and do that, and then I might give this a try, and then, I've got to go back and try that new one again. And right, I might get a drink. Okay, well, I'll just try this one. Once I've done this one, then I can go and do that one, and then maybe I'll get a drink. And then you look at the time, and you go, oh, I should have left by now. Knowing full well that you need to wash the chalk off your hands, change shoes, change top, get all your stuff together, get out the door, jump in the car and go kind of thing. You're like, okay, I'll have to leave it there. So I achieved 2 things on Saturday. I redid some stuff that I've struggled with previously, ones where I did them first time, and then afterwards I really struggled with. I did those again. I did some other bits and pieces. All in all, it was a good day. So, going back to what I was saying, I think I've had some, what I'm referring to as delayed morning. I don't mean the start of the day. Going back to the whale, these 3 elements were a traumatic event, put on a lot of weight, and the way the character felt about his child. And I focused on the latter 2, whilst there was a part of me that was like, yeah, the other bit affects you as well. And I slipped into this place, is the best way to describe it. I was super emotional. Like, super emotional. Now, I've had bouts of being super emotional a lot over the last few years. This was a point in time where I was super emotional. I found myself, a certain part of my life, I'd slipped back in time, so I started listening to music. My music's never really moved on from like the 90s and 2000s and sort of thing, and then I go and listen to something from the 70s. There's that sort of thing. But my music is very much, I listen to bands that I listened to in the 90s, even if I'm listening to their latest album. But I realised that there was certain bands and certain music that I'd not been listening to, and maybe not been listening to for many, many years. And I had this sort of realisation that I hadn't mourned. I've had loss in my life over the years, and some of it's been big, and some of it's been smaller, and some of it's been family, and some of it's been friends, and some of the friends are close friends, and some of the friends that I've lost over the years I think about on an almost daily basis. I've got family members that I've lost, and again, on almost a daily basis. It's like, keeping that, saying keeping that person alive is, I don't know if that's the right, keeping the memory alive, that might be a better way of saying it. So I found myself listening to an album, and this album that I haven't listened to in many, many years took me instantly back to a moment in time, like to a specific day in time. And it's been sort of interesting to slip through that portal. And what's interesting, one of the more interesting things, I think, in this, what I'm calling delayed mourning, is I've been doing a life comparison. How did my life look on that day? Take that day. How did my life look? And how does my life look now? And trying to deal with both, and saying, on that day, on that time, and that year, my life was a particular way. But how does it compare to how my life is now? My life now is very, very different. But not for the worse. It's not different for the worse. It's like all those grown-up things, houses and cars and children and jobs, bills, and all of that. And those things that are important today weren't important many years ago. But the things that were important many years ago are not important now. So it's this in crazy contrast. And what I started to do was I started to say my life was a particular way then, but is it better now? And I think there's like grief, mourning. If it's not done at the time and it's not dealt with at the time, it's bad, and it can be, I know more often than not, if there's been that time, you've got to give it the time. You got to set that time aside to do that grieving and that process. And realising that I didn't, and that I should have done. So, in the process of living through this time, I had to do some training, and so far through the training, they were like, okay, we're going to talk about a difficult subject matter, and if anybody wants to leave, they can leave, and then you can come back later when we're not talking about this difficult subject? And I was like, is now the right time for me to be dealing with this? Is now the right time for me to be dealing with something that's potentially upsetting? I'm in a place where I'm already easy to upset, that sort of thing. And I said, no, I'm fine. I'll be okay. I don't think it'll be, sometimes you think things are going to be worse than they potentially are. I think I'll be all right. So, as it was, nobody chose to leave the training session. So they went on. Okay, we're going to do this training. We're going to talk about this subject. We're going to play some stuff. So, listen to the first one and then we'll have a conversation about it afterwards. And I was like, I'm not sure I thought this was the way this was going to go. Is it too late to leave? Is it too late to leave? And I listened to this thing. And in all of my years, of all the experiences I've experienced, of all the things I've heard and have been said, I can safely say that something I heard on that day is possibly the saddest thing I've ever heard in my life. And sat in a training session, obviously with other people, I went, oh no, I'm about to get really emotional. And I was like, this is going to be bad. This is going to be really bad. This isn't good. So in the end, I had to turn away from the situation because I was retrieving my drink. I was having trouble picking my drink up. It took me a really long time to get my drink, and at the same time, I had a dust issue that was mostly in and around the eye area. Absolutely brutal. Hands down, it haunts me. It is hands down one of the saddest things I've ever heard a human being say. And I was like, wow. But again, no matter how sad it was, no matter how just awful, how bad it was, and how much it upset me, it also helped me, because I was like, yeah, I get it. I understand that. I understand that level of sadness. And like I say, it was a point of mourning, but it was also part of like a step to recovery. Started to bring, it was like somebody saying this really sad thing made me go, yeah, I get it. I understand. That is absolutely heartbreaking, but I get it. And I agree and I understand. And then things went, it was like the very bottom of the pendulum swing. So then things started swinging up the other way. And ultimately, I wonder if that's what brought me to Saturday. If you look at where I was on Wednesday, I don't think I'm going to do this anymore. I don't think this is for me. I think I'm going to walk away. I think I'm going to leave it. I have reached my pinnacle 3 days later. I'm like, we're not done here. There's a lot left to achieve, and it's time to get after it. One of those weird things. It's been nice to listen to old music. It's been nice to be able to go back and listen to music that I've not forgotten about, just not listened to in a lot of years. So there we go. We had a right weekend this weekend. And by right weekend, I mean, yeah. Saturday, so you couldn't get a bigger contrast. Saturday, super busy day. Everybody had to be everywhere all at once, not the film. My eldest had a friend, and they were going to do an activity, so I had to make sure that they were there where they needed to be, but we had to pick the friend up to take the friend, but half the roads in York were closed, so we had to go a different way once we got there. Then another friend of my eldest was going to be there, but they were leaving as we got there, and so they went off to climb, and then there was like a changing of the guards. So me and Leanne swapped parenting duties. So I then had all the little guys. And it was like, right, okay, you little guys, let's do some activities for you little guys. So it was this complete contrast, super busy. By the time I knew what was happening, it was tea time. And I'm not even kidding on that. By the time I knew what was happening, I was like, I need to put some tea on. How did it get to like 4, half 4? Super crazy. Versus Sunday, I knew on Sunday that I was going to be locked in the house with 4 children. Couldn't leave the house on Sunday because it was the York Marathon and the York 10 Mile. Basically, these big races, there's like the York Marathon and the 10 Mile, and then there's the York 10K. They basically closed the city for it, which on one hand, that's good. It's good that they appreciate the runners side of things. On the other hand, obviously it makes it super difficult for people to get around, and most of the people that live in York and know and understand just don't try. You say, I'm going to stay in on that day and not have to deal with it. I got up early, I took the dog out, that sort of stuff. The reason I was going to be in the house on my own is because the other person, the other adult in the house, was participating. Now we'll come to that in a minute because I want to talk about that along with something else. So we're in the house. The way I've described it to people is all the toys in the world and nothing to do. One of the things around the fact that my children, for want of a better way of putting it, for wanting it to be different than it is, the shortest version is my children are spoilt. I've had to come to terms with that and move on. They have a bajillion toys, and they are very strange with their toys because sometimes they go, I don't have anything to do. And I'm like, are you kidding? What do you mean you haven't got anything to do? You own all the toys in the world. And on the other hand, they're like, I'm going to play with this thing that I've never played with before. Or I'm going to play with this thing that I looked at once and put back in the box. And you're always looking to get rid of stuff. You're like, well, you've never played with that. And it's like, well, I'm going to play with it now. And it's my favourite toy. It's like, right. So there's a lot of that. That, I've learned from experience, has all the potential to go horribly wrong. Now, my son, he loves one thing only. It's a new thing, super fun. He loves destroying the house. I don't mean like taking a hammer to the walls. I mean taking everything off a shelf, emptying entire cupboards, emptying his entire toy box all over the floor and going, well, that's that done. Books. He likes to lay the books out on the floor and then proceed to stand on them because he knows it drives me up the wall. All sorts of things like that. He's like, hey, has this cupboard got loads of stuff in? I don't mean like kitchen cupboards. I mean like cupboards in the toy area. Hey, has this cupboard got a load of stuff in? Yes. Let's see if we can do something about that. Hey, has this this tub got like 100 tiny little rubber dinosaurs in it. Yes. Best pour them all over the floor then, yeah. So we reached a point where the dog was struggling to walk across the floor because there was no floor space. That's the level we reached. And then it was time for my son to go for a sleep. And I said to my daughters, if you could help out by doing a bit of tidying, that'd be amazing. And I want to give a big shout out to my middle daughter at this point in time. My middle daughter seized the opportunity to be a super helper. And on both Saturday and Sunday, was just like, I'll tidy up, and just did it all. And not like I moved this over here, like tidied the lot. I'm like, you are an absolute star. So I'm like, okay, we need a bit of focus. The secret plan was to watch a movie in the afternoon. I don't know, I want to say I'm old-fashioned, but I don't know if it is that. I just think nothing nicer on a Sunday afternoon, especially when the weather changes a bit, it gets a bit colder, which it has done in literally the last week. I think there's nothing nicer than getting sat on the sofa with a blanket and popping a movie on. Personally, for me, I think that's a nice sort of relaxing end to the week before it ramps back up into chaos and carnage. I knew I had the afternoon covered. So I was like, we're getting to that point where you can't keep all of those children on track. So when you send one off to bed, you've taken care of a quarter of the equation. Equation. Jesus. So you're a quarter down. But the cracks were already starting to show. My eldest had been very focused on some fashion designing stuff and skirt making, and I was like, that's fantastic. It looks brilliant. You've worked hard. That's great. But the younger two, my younger two daughters were getting a bit crazy, and my son was going to sleep, and I was like, look, I need you guys to just be calm for a little while. I was like, okay, I can't put the TV on, I can't put a film on, I can't put TV programs on. It's too early, it's too soon. What about a computer game? Computer game can be very short-lived, and I remembered when I was going through Game Pass the other day, I saw a Paw Patrol game. Now then, Paw Patrol's not for all of my children. I honestly don't think any of them watch it at the moment. And obviously I've got, older children. But this was a driving game. So I'm like, hey, it's going to be like, it's going to be like Mario Kart. That's all good and groovy. But they can have like a couple of goes and then they can be done with it. It's just a tiny little bit of focus, tiny little bit of downtime whilst my son's sleeping, bring everything down so that he can sleep and he doesn't get disturbed by, tiny elephants running around the house. So that was the plan. So it was on the Xbox. So I put the Xbox on and I got the controller and I was like, well, it's driving, so we're going to need two controllers. The other controller doesn't get used much, so I'll plug it in and get it charged. So I was ready and I got it all downloaded, the game, got it installed, and I was like, hey, I said to my middle daughter, I was like, hey, come and look at this. I sat down, I gave her the controller, I was like, here, you play this. Knowing full well that within 30 seconds, one, if not both, of the other two would be through. What are you doing? What are you playing? How come you're playing a game? And I was absolutely correct. So I'm like, hey, you've had a go, you've had a play. It's a driving game. Let's get the other controller, and then two of you can play together. Now that sounds like a fantastic idea. There's only one teeny tiny problem. Remember how I said it was a Paw Patrol game? Remember how I said it was a driving game? And remember how I said I have two controllers? Two children can play. No, they can't, because when you turn the second controller on and you say, I want to play multiplayer, me and the other person playing the game says, okay, cool, just sign in. I don't want to sign in. Why would I sign in? Just do the guest option. Oh, yeah, no, we don't have that. I was like, oh, jeez. Right, okay. So I was like, let's come out of the game. We'll go to the Xbox home screen. We'll log one controller in on my login, and we'll log the other controller in as a guest. That way, when we go back into the game, it knows that there's player one and a guest. So it took a little bit to find, but I found it. We did it. Job done. Player one and a guest. Perfect. Back into the game we go. I'd like to play multiplayer, please. 2 players, me and a guest. Anyway, cool. Just sign that guest in, will you? Mike, what is happening right now? Why are you asking for a Microsoft login for a child to play a children's game? What exactly are you achieving here? This is the most insane thing I've ever heard. I was like, so how am I supposed to get past this? There's no option. There's no other option. Every time I went into another player join up, it asked to sign in. I'm like, so what? We're working on the principle that a load of 4-year-old kids are out there playing Paw Patrol and they're there going, oh, I'll sign in with my Microsoft account and you sign in with your Microsoft account. That's absolute insanity. 90% of those children, 95% of those children aren't going to have Microsoft accounts. So how do you get a second player to play the game? I went through every possible conceivable scenario to try and get this system to work. And in the end, I had to say, I'm really sorry, guys, you're going to have to play single player. You're just going to have to play on your own and take turns. And that was that. That was that. That was the sum total of the playing experience. 2 of them had to sit and twiddle their thumbs while one of them played. And then what inevitably happened was, because they were taking it in turns, my eldest was like, I don't want to play this anymore. Because it's Paw Patrol and it's driving, and there was no... Because the other 2 can't do the turning, the game started doing it for them. So she was like, there is nothing here for me. So I'm like, well, what game do you want to play? And then because the eldest is like, I don't want to play this anymore, then the others fall in line by going, oh, well, then I don't want to play anymore. And then my youngest daughter's like, I'll play. And I'm like, well, it's not fair for you to play on your own because these guys are then going to be sat doing nothing. So the 2 youngest wander off and start playing, and playing is always going to be running around the house making a load of noise while my son's in bed. And my eldest ends up playing Animal Party or Party Animal or whatever that thing is. And I'm like, cheers, Paw Patrol games / Microsoft. That's awesome. I'm a real big fan of your system. If I put the PlayStation on and I want to play 2-player, I go, me and a guest, and it goes, cool, let's do this. Honestly, utter insanity. So, let's talk about human endurance. Yeah, you didn't think I was going to say that, did you? Leanne went out and did the 10-mile run yesterday, the York 10 mile. Now then, there's more to this than that. This is the same person who last Sunday went out in the morning and ran 10 miles, having done just a little over zero training. Now, yes, admittedly, this is somebody who is a marathon runner previously. So, this is a big difference between 26.2 and 10. Obviously, it's not like she ran a marathon yesterday, so, So, goes out last Sunday, does 10 miles with no training, just does it. Comes home and is like, right, I'm going to go off to climbing for 3 hours. Everything copacetic here? I'm like, see you in a bit. So, off she toddles yesterday to go do the 10 miler. At this point in time, nobody's worried. Nobody's panicking because we know she can do it. With the wonders of modern technology, we were able to follow her progress while doing the 10 miles in 2 different apps. I never even thought of these options. I was like, that is cool. I love stuff like that. I think that's a really cool thing. Simultaneously, whilst this was going on, we were also following the progress of Cameron Haynes' son, Truett, attempting to break the world record, pull-up record. The most pull-ups in 24 hours. And the record was 8,008. Just take a minute to take that in. Now, previously, he held the record previously when it was 4,100. So it's doubled since he last held the record. So we were following that along. We checked in when it was about 6,200. So we just kept flitting between the 2 different things. One was live on YouTube and one was, pick your poison for the app you want to follow. But I'm looking at these 2 things and I'm like, who does this? You got one person who's like, right, I'm just going to nip out and run 10 miles. I'll catch you guys in a bit. And you've got one person who's like, I've been training for a while now, but let's just bang out 8,100 pull-ups. Honestly, the human body, the human mind is just an absolute wonder. It was another one of those where I started questioning my own abilities because I know full well that I am not going out the door and running 10 miles. I'm also not going to go and do a single pull-up. So when you're in that, there are mornings when I go out and I struggle to run 2 miles. There are mornings I go out and I struggle to do a 5K. There are mornings I go out and I'm like doing 2 miles or 5K and I'm like, I honestly, if I didn't have to go to work right now, I could just keep going. But I'm certainly not running 10 miles anytime soon. But I did, and I have, and I thought I was dying. As far as the pull-up thing's concerned, I don't know if I'll ever be able to do a pull-up. Which, it's pretty depressing, isn't it? But the absolute marvel of certain human beings. Like I said, Leanne ran a marathon previously. Leanne was highlighting that over the 10 years that the 10 miles have been running, she's been involved in some way, shape or form 6 times. And I was like, wow. When you put it like that, it's pretty good going. And there are some people that never I never stop being amazed by people where a person's like, right, I'm going to go and do this. And you're like, yeah. Okay. And then they go and they do it and you're like, okay, cool. That's awesome. That's amazing. And a lot of it sits in your wheelhouse. I can't do 8,000 pull-ups. I can't do one pull-up. So the gap between 1 and 8,100 is if you were trying to throw a stone from one side of the Grand Canyon to the other. Going from my 2 miles, or my 3.2 miles on a morning, to 10, it's more than triple. Just to comprehend what those things are like, those feats of human endurance, absolutely monumental. Final thing for the week is this. I weighed myself today. I didn't really lose any weight. I lost, I think it was like 0.4 of a pound. I fasted all day yesterday. And I inadvertently fasted all day Saturday. Saturday that featured a run, a dog walk, somewhere in the region of about 3 hours worth of climbing, on and off. I'm not climbing solidly. Another dog walk, and like I was saying, in all of that, and a workout, did a workout as well, and in all of that I didn't eat anything. And then yesterday, long dog walk in the morning and then fasted all day. It's a super good time when you step on the scales on a Monday morning and go, what is happening here? I lost 0.4 of a pound. And the scales were even like, I'll tell you what, I'll give you 0.4, how's that? And I'm like, can you give me a full one? The scale's like, nah, mate, I can't do it, I'm afraid. 0.4 is about the best I can offer. And I'm being generous. And I'm just like, what is the point here? Depressing. It's really depressing. I can't get across how depressing it is. No computer games. Jesus, that's the only thing I did do this week. No movies, no TV. I watched a load of movies I've seen before, movies that I don't need to think about, just some that weren't good, but if you ever want to entertain yourself, do this. Go onto IMDb and look up the cast list of the first G.I. Joe movie. Some of it is fairly standard. There's some proper random people in that film that you're like, how the hell did they get them to agree to this? So, no TV. I mean, what? When Sunny came available, I watched it all in a few days. It's not like I don't watch TV stuff. What I watch is so few and far between that it's just, it's like my music. Very rarely get any new music. Movies. I did watch movies, but nothing to talk about. So let's talk some computer games. Computer. I'm trying to think. Did I tell you that I got Assassin's Creed? I don't know if I did. I don't know, because I think I might have got it one day last week. Okay, here's what we'll do. I'll work on the principle that I didn't tell you and we'll talk about it. But let's talk about something else first. I have to talk around it, which will be fun for everybody involved, I'm sure. I got Assassin's Creed. And because it was bought for me as a gift, I was like, I should play that. So that's what I did. I'm not going to talk about that first. In the process of putting the Xbox on yesterday for the girls to play, it came up saying, oh, by the way, you've only got 10 days left on your Xbox, on the Game Pass. I was like, oh, right, I've also paid for that. So really, I should be making the most of that as well. So I made the decision that last night I was going to do a bit of Game Pass. I had enough time to put the Xbox on, so I put Starfield on. Two things about Starfield, neither of them overly positive, just in case you're wondering. First one is this. A friend of mine said to me, I'm not going to play Starfield anymore. I'm sick and tired of going to the same bases and them looking exactly the same and having to do the same stuff. And I went, oh, okay. I was playing Starfield last night. I went to a base and it was like, clear out the base of all the bad guys. And I went, I can do that. So I did that. And then I went to a different place to get another mission. And it said, hey, what you need to do is I want you to go to this different place, to a different planet. Go to a base, clear out the bad guys. So I said, okay, I can do that. I got in my spaceship, I travel to another planet. I get off my spaceship and I go to the base. And when I get to the base, I went, hey, this place is exactly the same as the last place I went. That's strange. Have I come to the wrong place? So I went through the door and it was like, the door's the same. I go through the door, the first bit's the same. The same crates are there to pick up ammo and weapons and things. I was like, this feels a little bit samey. I go around the corner and the same bad guy is in the same place, standing in the same way. And I was like, okay. So I shot the bad guy and I went round the corner and I was up high and the bad guys were down low. And the bad guys, not only were they all the same, they used the same pattern of movement. And I was like, wow, that is some sloppy gameplay right there. That is bad. As far as games are concerned, that is bad for today's standards. So, I think I've stumbled across like the main story missions. Starfield does this thing where it's like, hey, there's this huge game encased inside. It doesn't tell you how to get there and it doesn't tell you how to do any of it. So you get like a tiny little taste of the game and basically you just do that. Like all the time running up to this game coming out, there was a lot of, you can build spaceships. I've been playing that game for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, and at no point have I ever felt the need to build a spaceship. And at no point has the game said to me, you should build a spaceship. So, I haven't done that. And every time I complete a mission, the game auto-selects another mission for me, which is, you should build an outpost on a planet. And I go, whatever. And then there was a point where I was like, hey, you're on a planet where you could build an outpost. And I went, well, if I'm here, I might as well give it a go. And I tried and tried and tried and tried and tried and tried and tried. And guess what? Absolutely no idea how to do that. And the game doesn't tell you. So that was that. So I stumbled onto the main story missions. And the main story mission was like, hey, go to this place. So I was like, okay. And it was like, go and get one of the artifacts. The game's centered around these artifacts. They're all the same, and you put them in this thing. So I went, okay, cool. And I got to this place, and it was very much like the anti-grav bits in Dead Space. And again, didn't tell you what to do. You had to work out for yourself. I'm still not sure if I did it right, but I managed to do it. One of those, if you get my meaning. So, then it was like, hey, now you can pick a superpower. And I was like, what? Like, yeah, you can pick a superpower now. Like, I've been playing this game for a really long time. And the whole time I've been saying to people, you know, in like other Bethesda games where like in Skyrim you've got the shout and in Fallout you've got the VAT system. This game doesn't have that. Yeah, it turns out that this game does have that. So I got this thing and it was like this gravity thing and you press 2 buttons and it does a gravity thing. And I went, ooh, a gravity thing. But what does it actually do? Yeah, they didn't bother to explain that. So I was like, you can now go and get another superpower if you want. I was like, sure, I love a superpower. Okay, so I went and did all the stuff that I needed to do, and I got it, and it went, yeah, you can now, you know, get oxygen if you need it. And I said, cool. I've been playing this game for a really long time, and at no point have I run out of oxygen. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at with Starfield. There is a part of me that's like, you know, I want to play this game. I want to see it to completion. I want to, you know, get through it and give it its dues. And I'm sad that Game Pass will run out at some point because I'll have to make that decision whether I'm going to, you know, pay again and continue with this game. And there is another part of me that goes, if I suddenly couldn't play this game anymore, how much worse off would my life be? So there's that. Honestly, it has to be one of the weirdest games I've ever played. It's just a baffling game. A lot of the time you're like, why did you choose to do this? So, let's talk Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed's one of those franchises that I used to, you know, gush over, and then as time's gone on, it's like, well, this is game 900 million, and they really are games that have never advanced past a certain point. The characters are all the same. The premise is all the same. It's just a different place. I've got to a point in my life now where I'm kind of wishing that there was an option on games where you could choose to say, I don't care about the story. I honestly don't care about the story. Just let me play the game. Just take all cutscenes out. Take all story out. I honestly don't care. And if you leave it in, I'm going to skip it all. I wish that was an option. You know, do you care about the story? Yes, no. No. Okay, just to let you know that all cutscenes will be skipped. All instance of story will be skipped. All you'll do is play the game. Are you okay with this? Yes. Those are my selections. So you play as a character who was in the previous game. I honestly kind of got the feeling that in the previous game that this character was a bit of a bad guy. I don't know. Maybe I got the wrong impression. Who knows? But I saw some reviews and it got reviewed to be like an 8 out of 10. I'll snatch your hand off for an 8 out of 10 all day, every day. So, excuse me. So, I was like, yeah, I get that at some point. A kind soul was like, hey, I got you this game. And I went, cool, thanks. I was like, well, it was a gift and I should play it. So, I was playing it and I was, you know, another thing I'd really like, just for future reference, if anybody who makes Assassin's Creed games ever hears this, can you give us the option to skip the you've never played an Assassin's Creed game, here's how it's done? Because my word, it's like slowly pushing a power drill into your temple. Anyway, so I'm doing stuff and I'm like, I go into this big area. It's like, you've got to lure a guy out and then assassinate him. Here's your assassination target. And I go, cool. And every time something goes wrong, I end up in a fight. And every time I end up in a fight, I end up dying. And I'm like, honestly, Have you ever heard of an Assassin's Creed game where the fighting's rubbish? So, this was a rinse and repeat. So, every time I tried it, every time I tried to do something different, I got into a fight and got killed. And then I remembered something that I'd either read or been told round about the time the game was coming out, which was that this version of Assassin's Creed has truly gone back to its roots and is trying to be a stealth game. Now, as we know, going all the way back to Splinter Cell on the original Xbox, was it? If you're playing a true stealth game, it's not about fighting, it's not about shooting your guns or throwing your throwing knives or any of that. It's about sneaking around and not being seen, not being spotted, and striking from the shadows and all that sort of stuff. So there was a day where I got sick and tired of getting my ass kicked in the fighting, and I turned the game off. I played something else. And then the next day I went back to it and I was like, right, we need to switch gears on this game. Switch over to, this is a true stealth game. So play it like a true stealth game. So that's what I did. And I managed to get past the bit I was stuck on. So that's something. And yeah, the game has progressed nicely since then, since making that distinction. Rumour has it it's not very long. It was the same price everywhere. Like literally everywhere it was the same price. And that price is about 30 quid cheaper than any other game that's coming out. So that probably gives you an idea of, you know, the last Assassin's Creed, Valhalla, was way, way over 100 hours. This is supposed to be more like 20. That's if you're doing all the side missions and stuff. So, you know, you've got that side of things. It's been fine so far. I do truly believe that the Assassin's Creed franchise needs basically a tear down and rebuild, and that doesn't mean remasters and reboots. I mean, they need to do something new with it. Because just releasing the same game over and over and over, what was Einstein's definition of insanity? The other game that I've been playing on and off is UFC 4. UFC 5 is coming out soon, and I'm kind of intrigued, should we say? I am not going to lie, I am truly enjoying UFC 4. I've managed to fight my way through my career to the point that I'm now just about to take on the heavyweight champion to see if I can become heavyweight champion. I do wonder what will happen from a game perspective once you become heavyweight champion. Now, I've seen some contract stipulations that say they only unlock once you become heavyweight champion. I imagine those stipulations will be different for the other weight class divisions, whatever. But I've seen that there are contract stipulations that are only available once you're champion. So, you know, presumably you have to defend that belt. I think I said this last week, and I will reiterate. I do think, if I'm honest, that the difficulty I've got it on is maybe too easy. There's that part of me that's like, oh, maybe I'll just pop the difficulty up a bit. And then there's the other part of me that goes, yeah, but I like winning. So, you know, we'll see. That's the podcast. Yeah, I don't know. I honestly thought that this was going to be a quick one, like I was doing it then, and not being. I hope the things that weren't too vague. I'll try and get a movie watched at some point. I really wanted my children to watch a movie yesterday that I was prepared to buy them. And every time I suggest they watch this film, they're like, oh, yeah, let's watch that. And I'm like, cool, let's watch it. And they're like, oh, but we could watch something else. I don't know. This film looks like absolutely the thing they should be watching. But, I don't know. Kids. Huh. Right, that's enough from me. I'm going to catch you next time. So there we go. What do you think of that? Another weird one. Another one that was supposed to be short because there was not much and then turned out to be long. And you know how it goes by now. Big thank you for watching. Big thank you for listening. Big thank you for being here. If you want to be a bigger part of the CookieCast crew, like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave reviews where you can leave reviews. Check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There we've got social media links and an email button. That way you can get in touch with us. That's it for this one. Till next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to Cookie